to this special program on US-Nepal cooperation. It has been 60 years since institutionalized development partnership between the two countries have started through USAID. In this special program, we have with us in our studios Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Bharat Mohan Adhikari. We have with us Secretary at Ministry of Finance Rameshwore Khanal. We have with us Dr. Kevin Rushing, USAID Mission Director in Nepal. And last but not least, we have with us His Excellency Scott H. DeLisi, US Ambassador to Nepal.
Good morning.
So start with the USAID perspective first. I'll go to Dr. Rushing. It is 60 years since the partnership started. Initially, the scene has changed in Nepal from when you started till now. How do you see the contribution of USAID in Nepal's development so far?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for inviting us here today, and let me say that USAID is very proud to be a partner of Nepal in development here. Over the decades, the nature of America's cooperation has reflected Nepal's evolving priorities and new opportunities as the progress has been made. In the early years, let's go back at the beginning, in 1951, when USAID came across the border into Nepal, we focused on eradicating malaria. And also we were fighting some very infectious diseases such as smallpox and malaria. And as a result of eradicating malaria, it opened up a vast area for agriculture production. And that's been very important for Nepal's development. We also got involved in building infrastructure. We brought in electricity, we helped build roads, we built airports. So that came along, and then we got into the education sector, and as time progressed, the literacy rates jumped from 2% to more than 40%. And as well in the agriculture sector back in the late 1980s and 1990s, we used new varieties of management techniques in agriculture, which in turn increased food production. And that was a real plus as far as the partnership we had with Nepal. Most recently, our development activities have been around the democratic process. Nepal is evolving in that process, and we're certainly glad to see that we have a new government in place. We're building on the successes of our health portfolio, and I can talk more about that later if you'd like. But overall, what I'd like to, at least in your questions, to say, what have we contributed over the last 60 years? And let me just give you some examples. Nepal is currently achieving two important Millennium Challenge goals, and that is the reduction in the number of maternal deaths from 539, which started in 1996. That number in 2006 was brought down to 281 per 100,000 births. And as well as the reduction in child mortality from 118 to 61 per 1,000 births. So we're very proud of that, and it's not just USAID. There's been other donors that have been out there providing this, but as you can see, the government has really taken charge and taken the lead on this. USAID provided resources that actually helped increase the incomes by more than 50% of 200,000 families in the country. This was in the 2000s.
Those are just the details of USAID's contribution. So when you said these things, initially it was different, your priorities. Does it mean its operation and priorities in the present context has changed in Nepal?
The priorities have changed in some respect, and I'll be more than happy to go into later in the program to discuss with you some of President Obama's initiatives as far as what we're going to be working on here in the next 5 years.
Well, now I'd like to go to His Excellency Scott H. DeLisi. What does the present context, the changed political context, mean to the U.S.? Does it mean that your priorities, your government's priorities and interest in Nepal has changed?
Not in the least. But first of all, like Dr. Rushing, let me say thank you for hosting this program. This is a partnership that's incredibly important to us. And the development portion of that partnership has been central to what we've done in Nepal, and as you noted, for 60 years. We were one of the first nations, we were the first nation, I think, to bilaterally engage Nepal as a development partner, and that's continued ever since. And we're very proud of that. It's something we've done together to build for the future of this country. In terms of the political environment, as Dr. Rushing noted, our engagement has changed as the needs of the country have changed, as the focus has changed, but it's never been driven by the politics. And for us, our policies in Nepal are very clear, and our priorities are very clear. We want to help build a stable, democratic, and prosperous society where human rights are respected. This has always been our objective, and all of the development efforts contribute towards that goal. And I think it's a goal that most Nepalis ascribe to. It's certainly a goal that we believe in. And so as we look at whatever we're doing, whether it's in the health sector, whether it's in agriculture, feeding the future, whether it's in protecting the environment and Nepal's tremendous biodiversity, whether it's in working to build democracy, working with communities to give people a sense of ownership and commitment and capacity to engage and be part of the society, it's all directed towards those same goals. And I think these are goals that the current government shares. I think they're goals that past governments have shared. But whatever happens politically, our commitment to development and moving forward in this direction remains unchanged.
Go to the Secretary now, Rameshwore Khanal. If I ask you, there are many challenges in our development endeavors. What do you think is one of the major challenges, like the power crunch? How do you think we are going to mitigate with these challenges, and where do you see the donor countries and donor agencies like USAID playing their role there?
Well, thank you for hosting this program, and I'd like to thank US government for the economic cooperation that I've extended to Nepal for the last 60 years. Well, the challenges that Nepal is facing is basically in the area of physical infrastructure, road infrastructure, which is not connecting rural areas to marketplaces, so that rural areas are not developing in the same manner that they would have been able to develop. The second biggest challenge is the power crisis or the energy crisis. That is the point you raised. The current demand is growing by leaps and bounds, whereas our supply situation is very poor. We are not increasing the supply. In this front, the government is adopting basically two approaches. One is to increase the micro-hydro production, use the alternative sources of energy for the rural population, so that we can light the rural villages. That will have tremendous impact in the educational standards of rural areas. School children can study in the night. Labor productivity will go up because they can use their spare time in the evenings to carry out some work. In the micro-hydro, we expect donor assistance, including US government. Our discussion with the USAID is that the expertise they had in the past in the alternative energy, solar power, for example, and micro-hydro could be scaled up. We can have wind power in some areas where there is a possibility. So these we should not only discuss, but we should decide quickly. And if Nepal government does not have the technical competence, then I think Kevin Rushing will be very happy to help us in getting the technical competence for implementing.
Right there, to ask you one question. When the priority and interest of agencies like USAID has shifted from infrastructure development to community programs and strengthening democracy, is it possible to divert them once again to infrastructure?
No, I see the Kevin's notes. He says that the steering is in the government's hands. Wherever we steer development partners, we'll have to have the right arguments. It is our priorities. Nepal's development is not the priority of the development partners. They don't set the priorities. We set the priorities. That has to have the argument. They'll question us, okay, you have set the priorities. Does it serve the interest of the people? Are you benefiting the poor people in the rural areas? Are you benefiting the economy? They'll definitely ask these questions.
I'd like to come back to Ambassador with this question. Do you agree with Secretary when he says we set the priorities?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They must set the priorities. One of the greatest challenges that I think that I have as an ambassador in dealing with the political leadership is, and we understand this, mind you, that the government and the political leadership is often consumed with the political process that is unfolding in Nepal. There's a huge transition underway. We know people must be focused on the peace process. It's incredibly important. They must be focused on the drafting of the Constitution. This is incredibly important. They often focus on who sits in the Prime Minister's chair. This too is important, but perhaps to us it doesn't matter, but it's important in the political scene. And when we engage them, though, what we ask is, give us your priorities, define that national development strategy.
Now I'd like to go to Honorable Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Mohan Adhikari. Honorable Minister, just listening to all these things, and now what it leads to is, if we set the priorities and it's not their interest, it's our interest, then why is this hydropower sector so far been neglected?
First of all, on this occasion of celebrating 60 years of Nepal-US cooperation through USAID Mission, I want to extend my thanks to USAID Mission, to Your Excellency the Ambassador, and through Ambassador, the American people, American government. And I also like to take this opportunity to convey through His Excellency the Ambassador the new government high regard to US government, and we people value friendship relation with America very much. And we know the relation of friendship with America has been in different sectors. So in the last, because more than six decades ago, we had a diplomatic relation, we started relation, and since then we are keeping very good relation. Our relation is expanding, and we are very proud of it. I want to tell that we Nepalese people are proud of having a very good, reliable friend, America. And second thing that you have raised is, because you know at present, the now new government is here. The new government has big challenges before it. First of all, peace. We are in transition period, and we have to solve this peace process. Time is running out. So our Prime Minister and myself we have said it, that within 60 days, we will solve this peace process. And similarly, we have to draft the constitution. So when we can solve this peace process and draft the new constitution, then only Nepal can have a peace, stability, and can check out the future plan. So these are two important priorities for at the present government or the national priority. And third thing, that is about the development. There is now we have democracy, but probably that democracy has not been able. Still, we have been not able to give a delivery to the people, rural people, common people. So their high aspiration is there. So at the same time, when I went to the Finance Ministry, I found that the economic challenges are tremendous. There is challenge. Yesterday I was in the Parliament to get my budget passed, and I am very happy that my budget has been unanimously passed. But at the same time, I want to tell you, all the honourable members, have asked me what you are going to do about these power cuts. Power is a big problem, so you have to solve it, as our Finance Secretary told us. So we are keeping it different alternatives, not only hydropower, short term, long term, mid term. So different power. The government has to keep the priority should be how we can solve this problem. We can have a 5 years program, 3 years, 2 years, 6 months or 3 months. So, and we can utilize different things. In this respect, my request is also that I want to request international community, USAID Mission, that they can also be helpful and they can help us how we can solve this problem. They have a lot of experience. They are in Nepal also. So I want to share with them how let us sit together and solve this problem. In this respect, we seek cooperation from international community also.
Well, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, that means since the priority of the country itself is peace and constitution, the rest of the things will be prioritized after we finish these two agendas.
No. Topmost priority is peace and constitution. But at the same time, you can ignore the fact that there is power cuts.
That's what I wanted to ask you, but so far, I'd like to come back to this question to Secretary. How do you see this thing being channeled to things like micro-hydro and alternative sources of energy? The donors' interest, how can we channel that to that part to mitigate our power crunch?
Yeah, we have a mechanism to channel the funds through one single window, so that each donor is not acting on its own. The window is operational, but the scale which we want the investments has not been there, and that's what the discussion is on the micro hydro and the electrifying the rural areas. On the issue of overall energy crisis, I think it's not the question of what is the number one priority and number two. All of them can go together. The constitution building, of course, is not to be in the second place after the energy crisis. They can go together. They have a different focus and emphasis. And Prime Minister, on the day of his assumption of his office, he has promised that he will create a body which will immediately decide on these pertinent issues, and the body is still active. Yesterday only there was a meeting. I think in the next couple of weeks, when the government is fully formed, there will be a decision on what modality will the government adopt in implementing certain projects to quickly resolve this issue.
I think we have had enough of power crunch here now. I think I'll go back. What role does development partnership play in the bilateral relationship?
It plays an incredibly important role, there's no question about it. If you look at our embassy, the majority of the staff in my embassy comes from the United States Agency for International Development. So much of our resources in Nepal are directed at development. And again, as I said to you earlier, when we talk about the tremendous work we're doing in the health sector, this contributes to the development of the nation, the well-being of the people, making a workforce that's capable of going to work. When we look at food security, when we look at climate change, when we look at biodiversity, democracy, all of these things, this is part and parcel of the agenda that we bring forward, our interests, but that are also consistent with what the government is trying to do. But when we talk about development, we have to remember that this isn't always about donor agencies either. You know, you talk about the hydropower and you talk about the power crunch, and it is real, but the private sector, we have to reach the private sector as well, and this is something that USAID is also doing. Their development program is directed at building the capacity of Nepal's private sector. We have a new program, 35 million over 3 years, that is very much looking at some of the key sectors of the economy and saying, how can we strengthen the private sector engagement in those areas? That looks at the policy issues. I was telling the Deputy Prime Minister earlier, we've created the Nepal Economic Forum. It's a group that represents private sector, government, think tanks, and others. And it's not any great initiative, but it's an opportunity to sit together and collectively say, what's important? How can we help the private sector create jobs? How can we build this economy? And what are the policy priorities? I'm not the private sector, but I can engage the government in a dialogue on policy issues that might encourage that investment from the United States. Again, if we're going to help in the hydropower sector or in power in general, much of that will come from our private sector. I will do my best to bring them in and encourage them, but we need government policies that make this easier. So this is always part of our dialogue with the government. Development is almost in everything that we do.
Dr. Just allow me to echo what the ambassador just said, is that we really see the private sector as the engine of growth for Nepal. Now, it's important that we create jobs. This is a key for Nepal. As you're seeing what's going on in the Middle East right now, the demonstrations just last night in Tunisia, these young men are looking for jobs. They want jobs, and we've got to help Nepal here. Instead of when you look outside on the street and you see the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the people that are lined up trying to get a passport, they want to go work somewhere in order to bring money home to the diaspora. The business environment, we need to make that more conducive for the private sector. There's some hurdles out there. I've had lunches, dinners with the private sector, and believe me, there are some hurdles, but they're still there. They're still trying to make money. They're trying to create jobs. But there's things like the contracting law, and how do you enforce that through the rule of law and such. If an American business wants to come in here and invest, What is there to protect that investment that they suddenly come in the morning and the doors have been shut? This has happened in other countries around the world. Not that it would happen in Nepal, but American businesses have been burned in the past. And I think they're just, and with the political situation, now that things are calming down here, we have a new government in place, that hopefully is going to start attracting more investment. And the one thing that I can at least say from the USAID side is that we want to help Nepal develop an innovative procurement and financing solutions so the country can move forward.
I'd like to go to Honorable Deputy Prime Minister once again. Now the country has taken to federalism.
Yeah.
How do you see development, especially the partnership with the foreign donor agencies like USAID, moving in this federal setup?
In this respect, I want to recall in 1990, in early 90s, we had a government. I was at that time finance minister. I just evolved one concept, build a village yourself program, and that has generated many development activities locally, and it was appreciated by World Bank also later on. So my point is this: if you want to have a development, federalism is part of decentralization. At the same time, we should have a commitment that local people, local development, local agency, local elected people, they should be involved in the development. That will generate development. So one point that I want to tell you. Second is that so far the federalism is concerned, now we are committed to have a federal structure. When we conceive the federalism, it means 3 tiers of government: center, province, and local government. I have a very clear opinion. Federalism has 3 tiers, not only 2. Because local government is very, very important if you want to sustain democracy and development. So 3 tiers. In this, and now after the constitution is drafted, power will be shared. We have to share, not only we have to delimit the provision, at the same time distribute the power, authority, or decentralize power, authority also. When we will feel that, then we can say how the foreign donors can be involved. But I can assure you that, we all major party in Nepal are quite interested that we want to have a development in Nepal, and in this respect, foreign donors or foreign participants, even I'd say the FDI also, foreign investment also, they have a very important role in the development in Nepal. So in this respect, I cannot say right now how after the federalism is set up, how we can manage. But Nepal is totally committed. And I want to tell you one thing more, that I also want to talk with our foreign donors also. They should help this new government, because I am very much worried. Why the FDI can go to Vietnam? Why it cannot come to Nepal? What I should do for that? I am seeking the help.
Your Excellency, if you have any answer to what Honorable Deputy Prime Minister just asked with the US.
I should go sit next to him and we could see this shoulder to shoulder. I absolutely agree. We can't begin to define what we're going to do in a federal state until we know what the federal state looks like. But the importance of engagement at the local level that the Deputy Prime Minister raised is something that we recognize very much and that we do virtually throughout our development activities here in Nepal with the support of the government. One of the great strengths of this country, one of the tremendous strengths, are its communities. The partnerships that we have built at the community level have been fantastic, and they make a huge difference, whether it's the 50,000 female community health volunteers who make a tremendous difference in the welfare of the people, whether it's community forestry groups, whether it's the communities that come together and work on agricultural programs with us. We see the strength. So we will work with the government on those issues. In terms of foreign direct investment, absolutely, we would love to see more of it, and there should be more. This is a country with great potential. It's a country with a real opportunity. You are between 2 countries that are growing at a tremendous rate, double-digit growth. And Nepal's growth remains at 3.5%. We've got to change this. And we think that there is room to attract that foreign investment. But we have to both determine the sectors of the economy that the government seeks to grow. And we also have to sit with the government, as the Deputy Prime Minister suggested, and discuss What are the constraints? Why is that investment going somewhere else? That's why we created the Economic Strategy Group. We're trying to understand this, but we need to understand it from the Nepali perspective. We need the smart people of Nepal to say to us, here are the problems. And we talk to our investors as well. And if we can identify those issues and work to redress them, I hope that over time we're going to see a real change in that picture of FDI.
I'd like to go to Dr. Rushing now. What needs do you see in the long run for the overall development of this country and USAID's role there?
Well, let me just say that, as I mentioned, the private sector was the key to the economic growth. But when it comes to where USAID is heading in the future, let me just say that the Secretary Clinton has brought on board Raj Shah, who is our administrator, and in my 31 years in USAID, he is fantastic. He's very dynamic. He's leading that charge, that vision of what the Secretary has for the whole of government, as well as what the 3 presidential initiatives, and I'd like to discuss those a little bit. One is the Feed the Future, that President Obama announced 3 presidential initiatives. One is Feed the Future, and that will be working with the government in other donors in tackling some of the root causes of food insecurity. The second thing is the global climate change, because you have the Himalaya mountains here, you have water issues, you have floods, particularly in the Koshi River, you have issues in the agriculture sector when it comes to seeds, not being able to adapt to either flooding or to drought. So these are one of the things we'll be looking at under global health, global climate change. And then you have the Global Health Initiative, which there we're going to be focusing more on the efficiency to help the government in building the country's lead in looking at healthcare systems and not taking it from a disease perspective, from a whole government approach, holistic approach to health.
Secretary Khanal there. We just heard about engaging private sector from the ambassador and also from the Deputy Prime Minister. What is the ministry's plan and how is it working out on this sort of modality?
Well, we need to understand very clearly why the private sector, both domestic and foreign, is slightly skeptic in putting in additional money. There is a saying that capital is coward. It doesn't go to places where there's a heavy risk of losing all the money. So we need to clearly see why investors see risk in losing their money. Number one is many of them say, we had a survey last year, that nearly 69% of the respondents who came from Nepali business community, both big, medium and small ones, said that political instability plays a key role in suppressing their desire for putting in more money. The second is cost of doing business. If our cost of doing business here is higher than Bangladesh or India, then industries will not locate here. They'll rather locate in India and then start supplying in Nepal. That's what is happening. I think we can very quickly create an opportunity for all the investors. And Nepal, as you know, is a greenfield investment opportunity country. It is not a brownfield because there are a lot of opportunity in hydropower, in agro-processing, in mines and other things.
This leads to investment-friendly environment. What is happening in Nepal at the moment is a lot of youths are looking for employment opportunities abroad. Where does it go in this creating investment-friendly environment, the brain drain in our country at the moment? How do you see it?
Well, I think this has to be dissected into different aspects. The dissection should see a lot of people who have opportunity in Nepal who can do their own business. We are currently facing shortage of unskilled laborers in construction business, in farming, in other things. Why did these people go out? They didn't go out just because of the employment opportunity, but also the glamour of being in a foreign country. You see, beautiful city, cars, you see all those things. In a rural setting in Nepal, you don't find those things. That is also one reason why many people are being pushed out. It's not only purely economic needs.
But what I mean is, but that has developed a sort of situation here. We are not getting easy or cheaper labor here in our country. That's how the production cost is increasing. Isn't that the reason?
Yeah, that is also increasing the production cost. But ultimately the businesses or the industries must pay higher wages so as to retain labor inside the country. I mean, labor will move, capital will move. Capital and labor, both of them are factors of production. Both of them require good reward. That's what the economics is. You cannot suppress them, say, okay, we stay in Nepal because you should love Nepal. I mean, love for Nepal doesn't come by speeches. It comes by, for the workers, it comes by the opportunity, economic opportunity. And also at the same time, some glamour also is pushing people outside. Students go outside not because the education quality in Nepal is bad, but because the glamour of being in US colleges, glamour of being in Australian colleges. So let us dissect that part. That part also has played a role in sending people outside. The other is basic economic needs or the technical know-how needs. People go to have higher education. And if we create the right business environment in Nepal, I think many of them will come back.
Now, I'd like to come to Ambassador now. What do you suggest to the government to stop this brain drain?
I think we've already talked about it. It's job creation. It's building an economy. It's giving these young people the opportunity to have a life in Nepal. And you're right, it isn't, love of Nepal is a wonderful thing, but it's not enough if you can't sustain your family, if you can't build for the future. But, you know, we're committed to working on all of this with the government, and one of the things that we're also doing, though, you talked about the challenges, skilled labor. We have a program right now in the Midwest where we are training young people. And we're working with the private sector as we do this, because we don't want to train them in skills that aren't needed. So it's asking the private sector, what do you need? Do you need masons? Do you need carpenters? Do you need electricians? And those are the jobs that we train for with the understanding that they will be employed. And we're seeing great success. I think our goal, Kevin, is what, 70,000 over 3 years?
3-year period.
And along the way, we've trained
65,000.
Yeah. So I mean, and these folks are getting good jobs at higher wages. This is important to us as well. I would just note, though, that I do think the quality of education in Nepal is good, but I hope that they're going to the U.S. not just for glamour, but also for a quality education as well.
There's a quality. We're not seeing that there. Now, Prime Minister, apart from the power crisis, what do you see are the major challenges to achieve for development in our country?
You know, other challenges are that you know, we have in agriculture sector also we are very backward in comparison to our neighboring countries. We have to do a lot of things for development of agriculture. Take the case of industry. In industry sector also we are not doing nice. Similarly, in export industry. So these are the problems. Our economy has some problem. It has to be addressed. Financial sector problem, industrial problem, agriculture problem. So all these things have to be addressed. And I think that with the support of Parliament, with the support of Cabinet, we can do it. We are making a plan to just how to move ahead.
Now I go to USAID again, Dr. Rushing. Where do you see USAID moving ahead in the future, in the global as well as Nepal's context?
Well, yesterday Administrator Shah gave a speech in front of the National Institute of Health, and I would like to quote something that he said in his speech. If you go onto our website, you can read the details of his speech. It's very eloquent, but I think he comes to the heart when it comes to things like what's going on in science and technology. He said that our real opportunity rests in harnessing the power of invention, scientific, technological, and behavioral, and he said, on behalf of the developing world. For USAID, we're going through an exercise right now called USAID Forwarding. And it's going to be a little different in the way we do business. We've been criticized by our U.S. Congress for not doing things that we were expected to do. We've accomplished things, but yet we have to report out and say what we've done more. And we're now having to do more with less. We're going through our own budget situation right now. But let me just say that in Nepal, we have a number of different strategies here. We have a whole of government strategy with our colleagues at the embassy that sectors we're going to be working in. And as I mentioned, the 3 key presidential initiatives, the thing that you'll be seeing in the future here, and just to tell the audience out there, we will not be providing resources per se to a number of U.S. consultants is that we want to see more capacity building of the local institutions, whether it's government, whether it's NGOs. That's where you're going to see a bulk of our resources now going for some of these initiatives. And it's because at the end of the day, I mean, I would like to be able to come back here in 10 years and say, oh, we closed out USAID. I mean, we've graduated Nepal now like we did in Brazil and what we did in Korea. And let me just throw one thing out there that the ambassador and I have been working on, and we mentioned this to the Deputy Prime Minister and to Mr. Khanal, is that we want to bring the U.S. Peace Corps back. Everywhere I go in this country, when I'm meeting with Nepalis, they say, where is the Peace Corps? And I'm really hoping now that we have a new government in place that the ambassador will be able to go back and say, bring the Peace Corps back. And I think that's part of our whole diplomacy effort.
Yeah, Your Excellency.
Could I add just one thing to what Kevin said? First of all, yes, indeed, we've already begun this discussion with the Peace Corps, and I won't give up, and I hope we'll be successful. But the other thing that I think it's important to recognize in terms of the development partnership is, first of all, for the United States, President Obama has made it very clear, as has Secretary Clinton, as has Dr. Shaw, development is one of the core pillars, one of the key pillars of our national security as well, of our national interest. And our commitment to remaining engaged in development is strong and it is real. But for all that we do in development, and the Deputy Prime Minister and I just talked about this earlier, one of the real threats to development in Nepal is the major earthquake, is the natural catastrophe that we know inevitably will happen here at some point in time. And as we saw in Haiti, if we do not prepare, if we don't take the steps now, all the efforts we are making, decades worth of development efforts, will be lost. I don't want to see that clock set back 20 or 30 years. So to us, as you know, one of the things that our embassy is very deeply engaged with the United Nations, with the World Bank, with the government of Nepal, and I applaud them for the leadership that this government is showing, is to try to change that equation. The disaster risk reduction effort is essential to preserve the gains that have been made and to allow us to build for the future. And I just think that that is so important. I had to bring that topic up.
I think we have come to almost the end of this discussion. To wrap this discussion, I'd like to go to, once again, Secretary Khanal there. How do you assess the 60 years of USAID's engagement in Nepal? In very short.
In very short, I think in human infrastructure building, if I am to quote only one achievement, and the biggest achievement that we made during the 60 years is human infrastructure building. USAID was partner in our educational standard development by starting the teachers training program, the first one. In the health, two remarkable achievements that we made in the last year alone, and Nepal got the prize on reduction of maternal mortality and child mortality. USAID was partner. In malaria eradication, USAID was partner. All these things contributed to build the capacity of human beings in Nepal so that they can be more productive, more useful to the country, and economically productive. That is, I think, most remarkable achievements. Peace Corps, of course, is another important component. The technical know-how by the farmers, small things, I mean, a lot of things, a lot of good stories of Peace Corps. That's why in the first meeting I had with Kevin, I tell him that this is the first thing we should do in your time. And he has promised that it will get back. We'll be requesting it officially. I think these are the achievements.
Last question. Anyone of you can answer this. In volume, how much is U.S. assistance roughly? May not be in exact terms, but where is it in priority list Nepal, if not in the volume, in U.S. assistance?
For the assistance agreement that we signed with the Ministry of Finance last year, it's a $300 million program over 5 years. And that does not include centrally funded projects that come in here, which sometimes even will provide 25 up to 50% more resources. So it's a very robust program.
Nor does it include the partnerships. We have a great partnership, for example, with our Pacific Command. The Department of Defense isn't just about tanks and airplanes. It's also about development. It's about contributing and making a difference in people's lives and working in partnership with USAID. So we have the Department of Defense. We have the Department of Justice. We have, as Kevin said, this is a whole of government approach. So our total partnership is a very robust one. Where it fits, when you asked where it fits in a global scheme, I couldn't even begin to tell you. But all I know is that it's important to us, and at the end of the day, we'll measure it not in dollars, but in seeing a Nepal that is more stable, that is more prosperous, that is more democratic. For us, that's going to be our measure of success, not how many dollars we spend.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you so much, Secretary Rameshwore Khanal. Thank you so much, Dr. Rasing, for participating in this program. We hope this was a meaningful discussion out here. To all, was the discussion about US-Nepal cooperation. As we mentioned earlier, we did this program on 60 years, marking 60 years of US-Nepal financial cooperation, bilateral cooperation through USAID. Thank you so much for your participation. Bye-bye.